Okay, it's time to get started with the Simplebim product webinar on how to maximize your BIM value with Simplebim. My name is Jarmo Kuusinen. I'm head of partnerships at DataCubist, and here with me is Mr. Jiri Hietanen, CEO and co-founder of DataCubist. But before jumping into the actual product demo and product presentation, few words of housekeeping. This session will last about 30 minutes. During the session, the Q&A section will be open, so you can ask questions by typing them in. We'll answer those questions either on the fly if we can find time for it, or then in the end of the session. And this will be recorded and then made available later on for participants. Few words about the DataCubist as a company. DataCubist was founded in 2009 by Jiri and the other founder, Sakari Lehtinen, who's a structural engineer by profession, and as Jiri has an architect background, these guys are kind of a mastermind behind the Simplebim app. What we aim to do is to solve data exchange problems in construction industry. The software that we are talking about today, Simplebim, is already in version 9, and by the way, version 10 is already in the works. We have more than 5,000 users in 36 countries, and the Simplebim app is sold by 11 resellers in 16 countries. And here's the list of resellers. You can find them from our webpage as well, so feel free to contact them as well if you have any questions about the software or about the services or trainings around it. And of course, we are available for support as well. That's pretty much the housekeeping part, and next let's move on, and I'll give floor to Jiri, who will showcase the product and tell you more on how to use the software for maximizing your BIM value. Jiri, floor is yours.
Thank you, Jarmo. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, good. Yeah. So welcome. My name is Jiri Hietanen, and like Jarmo said, we're the developers, and we had the idea for Simplebim way back in 2009, and we've come quite a long way since our beginnings, and this has become quite a system and quite a solution. And now I'm going to show you the main things, and then when you want to know more about it in the end, I'll show you where you can find more information about Simplebim. So the basic idea of Simplebim is to improve the models. So there are many applications that can import IFC and do things with it, but Simplebim is the unique application because you import IFC and you do things to the IFC model, and then you export a better IFC, which is then better suited for different purposes. Like you see on the right, you might have like quantity takeoff, cost estimation, procurement, scheduling, site operations, and so on. So there's a lot of things you want to do with the models. And the basic issue is that you have things you want to do, and you need certain information for doing it. And then on the left side, you have the models that you get, which is then from different designers, and they are done with different software by different people, by different organizations, and so on. And despite all the efforts for standardization, national, international, and so on, there's still the problem that what you get is not what you need. So how do you solve this issue? That you don't get what you need. And in Simplebim, we have the idea of normalization. So from this data that has many different ways of representing the same thing, we produce models where the same data is always in the same place, in a consistent way, in a reliable way, and so on, so that it works much better for the intended purposes. So this, if you don't remember afterwards anything else about this webinar, then this is the most important thing. This is the position, this is the role, this is the reason for having Simplebim. Make the models better. And then when we think about the, how did we do it in reality, then we have kind of 3 steps of evolution, how you do it. So step 1 is you just do these things in the Simplebim user interface manually. You just open the model, you look at it, and you see how it's structured, what data it contains, and then you start doing manual operations to get it right. But that, of course, doesn't scale so much, and it can be boring, and this repetitive work is better to be automated. So then we have, as the second step, we have the possibility to use templates in Simplebim, which is basically about automating the things that you can also do manually in the user interface. But once you figured out what you need to do, you can automate it, and then it becomes, again, much more efficient, much more reliable, and much easier. But then you can go even one step further, which is the script approach. So once you figured out the whole workflow and you have confidence that everything is set up and working like you expect, you can run Simplebim scripts, which basically do the same thing, but without ever opening the Simplebim user interface. So you can do them kind of, in the background automatically. So this is, but first you have to know how to do the first step, what you can do, how you do it. Then you have to know the second step, which is how to create these templates for automating things, because in the third step you will use these templates. You just apply them automatically and run tools and do other things. But this is kind of the order in which you have to approach this to get the maximum value out of the models. But once you get to step 3, then you have the maximum value, because you get the good models in an automated way. And what could be better? So what skills do you need for doing all this? So first of all, you need to know what is possible in Simplebim, because Simplebim, like I told, Jarmo also told, it's in the 9th version. It has a lot of functionality, a lot of capabilities. So you need to know what's available. So, for example, exporting IFC or exporting Excel, how to do that. BIM-sheet is an integration of the model and Excel. Then you can, if you need to colorize objects, you could edit property values, you could get data from external sources and insert that data into the model. You can edit the model tree, the containment structure, building stories, if some furniture is inside a space, and all that kind of things. When you need to fit models together, you can transform coordinates, and there's a lot more that you can do. And I will show some of them today in this webinar. Okay, so then you have the motivation. You think, great, I need to do these things. So how do I do them? Behind all of these is basically the idea of an object selection. So basically, it's from the whole model, you have to be able to select a subset of all the objects, and then you apply an operation to that subset. So it's a very important skill in Simplebim to be able to make selections, because all the operations are done on a selection of objects. Like this IFC export, you could export everything, But if you, for example, wanted to export only the objects in one building story, which is one of the examples of today, then what you have to do is you have to make a selection which contains all the objects in that one building story. And then you use that selection in the export operation. So export everything in this selection to a new IFC file. And the same applies, of course, to everything else. Like if you want to colorize things or put them into Excel and so on. You can even transform coordinates just for a selection of objects, move, rotate, and so on. So there are several ways of creating selections, like ad hoc. You just kind of, click, 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 select objects. Then we have the whole big system for groups, which is very, very capable. So you can create manually groups by drag and drop, or you can use rules saying every object that complies to this rule should be in this group. And then classifications, like you have these uniclass, uniformat, and so on, hierarchical classification systems. And then HVAC systems and spatial zones. And then as a very important thing, especially for construction companies, is locations. It's like construction sections. They could be concrete pours. They could be apartments, whatever location you have that can be made. You have to select all the objects in a certain location. How do you do that? So you have the object selections. But before you can do any object selections, you have to have the whole model. You have to have all the data from which you make the selection. So you need to be able to import IFC. You need to be able to merge IFC models, put them together. And then you need to be able to align models. So if they are in different coordinates, you need to kind of rotate and move them so that they fit on top of each other nicely. So when you know all of this, then you have step 1, which is doing this manually in the user interface. And then you need to know a few things about Simplebim user interface, like how to navigate in Simplebim. We've done it in a way that it should be very familiar, because, why invent something really new in navigation? Because it's like industry standard now. How to use drag and drop, and how to use workspaces, and so on. So how to use the Simplebim user interface. So when you know how to use the user interface, you know these things, then you can do things manually. So you are on step 1. Then we have step 2, which is the templates, which is about automation. So basically, a template is, in the sense, nothing else. If you simplify it, in the template you have to define the selection, all the objects in a certain building story, and then you have to define the operation, colorize them blue, for example. So you have to, in the template as well, you have to make selections and operations. So then you have, on step 2, you have already automation, and then you can do kind of repetitive tasks, like it becomes part of your workflow. Because in step 1, you could say, well, I'll use this tool whenever I have some problems with the IFC models. I just fix them. But that's quite low level. The better use is, I always use Simplebim, and it's part of my workflow, and I automate it with templates. And then you get the benefits with every model and in every project. And then the last step is with the scripts. And really the difference between templates and scripts is that with a template you're working, within one model. It could be a merged model that it has several models combined, but it's still one model. The script would be something like, import an IFC model, apply a template to it, run some tools, and export a new IFC file. So it's the whole workflow of, how do you get from the start to the end? This is what you do with the scripts. Okay, if there are no questions at this point, then I'll just jump to the software itself and show how all this, not all of this, but with some very quite simple examples how this is then applied. And Simplebim is a very capable software. It can handle very large models, but for the sake of the demo and the clarity, we're using our small getting started model, also because you have this model, it comes with a Simplebim installation, which means that you can basically do the same things that I'm just doing later on by yourself. So that you have the example. Yeah. So the 3D, we have a 3D view. Normally you can turn it with the left mouse button. You can pan. You can zoom with the mouse, all that stuff. And there is some other things to it. And if you ever get lost with the 3D, you have on the bottom right hand corner, you have this green icon. You click on that and you get this quick help where you have all this explained, how you navigate the model, what are the shortcut keys for the different functions, and so on. So if you ever get lost, the help is right here in the lower right hand corner. And when I said that there's no need to reinvent the 3D because it's already been invented, but of course we have to have something. And the unique feature in Simplebim is the drag and drop from the 3D. So let's say I wanted to make a new IFC file which contains only this one object, this one roof slab, just this one. So I hover over it with the mouse. I click the left mouse button, give it a click down until the color of this header changes. And then I just drag and drop it to this included, we call it a bucket, included bucket. And now I just have one object included and everything else is excluded. So when I now make an IFC export, I will get a new IFC file which contains only this one object. So this is quite unique. And also in this Simplebim user interface, on the upper left-hand corner, we have undo and redo. So you can, if you make a mistake, you can just undo, and you can redo and undo the operations. So you don't have to worry about making mistakes, because you can always go back and fix the mistake. So the first step was importing IFC models, which I've done here. We also have the merge here if you want to combine several models, and you can merge. You can make a model that it's like it was originally everything done in the same application. So we can merge sites, buildings, and building stories so that the architects and structural engineers objects on a certain building story are actually also in the IFC model in one building story. So this is very nice. And you have the placement editor here when you need to kind of move the models and put them on top of each other. But that's all too much to show in a short demo. Then you have the selections, like in the 3D. Of course, you can select individual objects. We have area selection, just make a rectangle and select everything within that rectangle. That's sometimes nice. But one of the quite unique features in Simplebim is what we call the quick select. So if I, for example, wanted to select all the walls, I have a quick select for object class, and then I just hover over one of the walls, and then it selects all the other walls as well. Or if I hover over one of the slabs, it selects all the other slabs as well. Same for the columns and so on. So that's really nice. And we have a lot of them. Like what is the type of the wall? All the walls of the same type. Very, very fast to select things. So this is a good thing to keep in mind, this quick select. And you can make the selections also you can drag and drop from 3D like I showed, but you can also, like if you wanted all the walls, you can drag and drop the objects from the walls from the objects palette over here, just included all the walls. Or if you want to have a certain type of all the walls, let's say on a certain floor are here, so just excluded them here, objects from that floor. So it's also possible to select this kind of things by property value. This is automatically grouped. So selecting this is selecting all the walls of this type just by clicking on the value. And then I can do the include here. Okay. So it's good to know that this kind of, you can do selections in many different ways. Even in the containment, everything in one building story selected like this. Yep. But then the normalization is also a lot about property values. So it's about having the same data always in the same place. And for that, you need the templates, because the usual approach is that you have you create your own property set, and then you collect all the properties you need into that one property set, and then you use your own property set. But you can also do some kind of this kind of normalization in the user interface. Like I have here one example. If I take the slabs and just the name of the slab, you can see that there are some slabs that don't have a name, but they have a construction type. So if I wanted, this is actually the name of the slab, but it's in two places in this model. Some slabs have the name in this property, and some other slabs have their name in this property. So that's not good. So you could do something like this. You add a new property, that these are floors. Maybe I type it correctly anyway, even though it's not important. And then I select the floors and say, these are floors. Okay, now I only have 8 left that don't have any value. So I say, these are the roofs. And then I take the roof over there. And now all of my slabs have a name. Okay. So, and then when I use this model somewhere else, I can just use the name property for the slab. I don't need to go and in my, for example, quantity takeoff application, I don't have to go looking in several properties for the name. It's all in the same place. And then especially for the construction companies, I'll show one more thing, which is the location editor. So we have the locations. And this is quite nice because there are a lot of locations in the model, in the project, and it's a hassle to have the designers define the locations into the model, because it's not their job. It's not what they design. It's something that the main contractor, for example, is doing. So we have a system where we can import these, what we call location prisms. These boxes, they don't have to be shoe boxes, but in this example they are. They can have any shape you want. So we have these boxes, and then we resolve the locations. We just have like, I won't go into these details, but it's also very capable. It handles assemblies. It can do grid mapping, that the new objects get always the same global IDs. And it has some smart functionality and so on. But if I just simply run this, so now it's split, and my location 0 is a section, so it even cuts the objects if you want at the edge of the sections, and then it has like windows and so on that will never be cut. But you can see how this is useful. And now I have a selection of all the objects in this one location. And you can even do multiple locations, on top of each other. So you can have construction sections, building stories, apartments, and anything, and just add this information to the objects, and then they become much more useful. Okay, but this is in the user interface. And then when you go into the templates are, in our system, they are Excel files, and they are not really complicated. They are just, you can also do a lot of them with them, and we have a good template guide that tells you all the details. But basically here we just add one property, which is the normalized name property. No, that every object here, all the objects have this normalized name. And then we copy values from the existing properties to this new property. Like from all the objects, we just take the name as the basic thing, but we know that for the spaces, the name is in a different property. So we just copy then for the spaces, the name from another location to the same property. So when I now apply this template, let's see here, I just drag and drop the template on the 3D, then it's applied. And so now I have my normalized name here, and we have the space names here, we have the wall names here, and we have the slab names here, everything in the same list, because we have the same property for all the objects. And it makes it very convenient then to use the model for other purposes. And we also added some validation. That was also quite simple. In the validation, we just said simply that for all objects, we must have a value for this normalized property. So a very simple rule for the validation. And also here, it's very simple. We can see that not all columns have a name. So we have a warning here. The others are okay, but columns don't have a name. So that's, we have this fairly simple, straightforward validation for that you can use, but it's very useful for this data content to make sure that you have the data that you need for your operations. So this is about automating with templates. And then the very last step is automating with the scripts. So we have here a Simplebim, very simple script. It's basically importing an IFC file. Then it's running a tool for calculating some quantities for the objects. And then it's applying this template that I just applied manually. So it's applying this. And it's exporting this result into a new IFC file, which is ground floor only, because one of the things this template is doing, it's isolating the ground floor and excluding all the objects from all the other stories. So I just want to make a normalized model from one building story. So not very complicated either. So when I run this script, it starts Simplebim, but there is no user interface. Well, there is kind of a debugging. You can see it if you want, but this again also goes so fast because there is no user interface. You don't load the whole application, so it's a faster operation. So it's completed, and now we have here a new IFC file just now generated, and the ground floor only. And now if we just go into Simplebim and we open the result, we open the result of the ground floor only. And we see that we have the objects on one floor, and and everything was done automatically behind the scenes without any need for opening the Simplebim application and the user interface. So I think I used my time, and now if anybody has questions, then it's the time to. So if Jarmo, if anybody had typed in any questions, but I hope you understand the sequence of things, that you first need to know what you want to achieve, then you can automate it with templates, and then you can go one step further and automate it with scripts. And that's how you get the maximum value out of your models.
Yes, great. Let's check the questions. We do have a question about example script files. Is there an example script file which can be used or copied?
Yeah, there is. If I show the, I don't have the browser open. Oh, here. So if I go on the Simplebim support site, then there are these how-to articles, and one of them is automate with scripts. Then you can download a sample script with the model and the template that you can run the whole package kind of, and this is also explaining what that script is doing. And then the other is that we have in the advanced section, we have the Simplebim batch processing, where the syntax of the script files is explained in detail, and also there is a longer sample script that shows this how to use the scripts. I hope that answered the question. And if you have questions then about the script, then just write an email to support at simplebim.com, and we'll help you out.
Yes, absolutely. Now, at the moment, there are no other questions, so.
Yeah, then the last topic was here about where do you find help. Then we have a blog which has articles also about BIM theory. Then we have a lot of tutorial videos on the website in the Learn section, and then we have the support site with the lot of how-to articles and the template guide and so on. And then you can also email us at the support. And then it's possible to also get training. We have the kind of basic training, possibilities, functionality, and then the automation training, templates and scripts, so on. And then when you need help for an organization-wide deployment of Simplebim to all your projects, then we can also help you in that.
Yes, very good. Is that all, Jiri?
Yeah, that's
okay. Very good. Thank you very much for the presentation. Now, before wrapping up this session, I just want to also remind you of few case studies which you might be interested in. What Jiri just showcased before, you can imagine how powerful this toolbox can be for different purposes. Once you know what's the good workflow, what to change in the file in the IFC models, you have the tool set to automate that processing, and scripting makes it even more efficient. Here we have a few case examples where this tool set has been used by different customers of Simplebim. Here are four examples, but there's more on the web page. So just surf at simplebim.com and check the reference cases there. You might find some great ideas from other customers how to apply this tool. Anyways, I think that's all for today. I'm just checking that there are no questions. There's one more question. When are the next trainings? Will they be mentioned on the website? About the trainings, well, first of all, we have bunch of local resellers who provide trainings locally, and then we kind of recommend always to have a look, check their training offering, and well, we do also provide trainings ourselves, so we can be in touch with you after this webinar to discuss this topic. That was the last question that we have, so I think we can wrap up this one. So thanks a lot for joining this session, and hope to see you in the upcoming events. Thanks a lot and goodbye.